Hi, this is Dave and welcome to the Table, a series of videos where I review and discuss various board and card games looking at them from a family perspective. Today we're going to be taking a look at Piñata from Rio Grande Games. Now Piñata is a two-player, fiesta-themed strategic card game where you and your opponent are both attempting to smack the piñata to knock out all the candies and be able to collect them in order to score medals and win the game. Let's take a look at the game and how it's played, and I'll come back and I'll give you my thoughts. Okay, let's quickly take a look at the components that come in Piñata. And first thing that you will find is 4 of these player mats, and they're two-sided, numbered 1 through 4. They're made out of wood, so nice quality there. Also, 45 of these wooden candies that are going to be used in the game. They're going to be placed on those mats, and players are going to attempt to smack the piñata and win the candies. Next, there's a deck of 54 of these playing cards in various colors and values that correspond to the candies that I just showed you. And there are some cards that are white. These are wild cards, so there are wild ones in there too. And then finally, there are 5 of these metal cards that you will compete for in order to win the game. And so you match those up by getting certain types of candies. Okay, those are the components that come in the game. Let me show you how the game is set up and how it's played. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've set up Piñata here, and it's a 2-player game. So first thing that I did was I took the 5 metal cards and I placed them off to the side of the board, and I put them in numerical order, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and each of them have a corresponding color and a number, and I'll quickly explain what that means. On those cards, for example, here, if we look at this, like the yellow or the pink, to score this yellow medal, I will need to have 3 yellow candies. And I will get the candies by smacking the piñata and getting them. And likewise, the pink, you're going to need to have 4 pink candies. The purple, you're going to need 5 purple candies. And then there's going to be, you need 6 green or 7 red. So that's how those cards are going to work. Next, what I have done is I have gone ahead and I have set up the 4 player boards in the middle in numerical order, 1 through 4. And the starting orientation does not make any bit of difference. So for this video, I've put 2 of them at the end with the arrow pointing up and 2 in the middle with the arrow pointing down. What those arrows signify is when we do play cards, they are going to determine how they're going to be scored. If the arrow is pointing up, then it's going to be the higher card. If it's going to be the arrows down, it's going to be either the lower card or a combination of cards. Now, this is also going to signify 2 other things. Number 1 is going to be the number of candies that are going to be available on each of these squares, and then also the number of cards that have to be played in order to score them. So next, what I have done is I have taken the 45 candies and I've placed them in this bag, and I'm going to give them a little shake here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw them out of the bag and I'm going to place them on the board. So the number 1 spot is going to get 1 candy. The 2 spot is going to have 2 candies. The 3 will have 3 candies. And finally the 4 will have 4 candies. Now these candies represent the colors of the cards that have to be played there. For example, here, if we look on the number 2 spot here, there is a green and a yellow candy. There is going to need to be 2 cards played on that 2, and 1 card is going to need to be a yellow, and 1 is going to need to be a green. Same thing for the number 3 here. 1 is going to be yellow, 1 is going to be green, and 1 is going to have to be red. And that's going to change over the course of the game. And then each of the players is dealt a starting hand of 8 cards. So here's our starting hand of cards here. And we have plenty to choose from here. And if we look at the board and what we're going to want to score, we're going to want to play certain cards or combination of cards in order to score. For example, here we might want something a little bit high. So I have 2 options. Like if I want to try and go for this pink card over here, I could play this pink number 4, or I could play this wild number 5. Now the cards go up to 7, so 7's the highest card. So 4 is in the middle, 5's a little bit better. Or we can go for something a little bit lower in the middle. So maybe I'm going to take this green 2 and I'm going to play it here in front of this card. And then I'm going to draw a card and put it into my drawing hand. The second player, on their turn, let's look at their hand of cards here, will try to also score with some low cards here. So maybe we're going to play this green number 1 over on this side here. Now it doesn't make any difference. You don't have to play the cards opposite like wherever this player played. For example, we played a card here. The other player does not have to play a card there. They just have to play a card along the side here, and it has to match one of those mats. And they will draw a card. Now, a couple things are going to happen here. For example, on my turn here, if we look at my hand of cards, I'm going to play this other 2 here. I'm going to play this wild 2 here to substitute for, it could be either the yellow or the red at this point. I don't have to declare what it is. And then I will draw a card. And player over here will play a purple 1, maybe over here on the number 4, that's what they had. And then finally, on my turn here, I will play this red 2. So I have a total of 6, which is pretty low. Now once I've done this, if the player opposite me does not have their requirement fulfilled, I could play cards on their side of the board. So if they didn't play a red card, for example, and I look at my hand, I could take this red 5 and play it on their side and make it rather high and kind of hard for them to score. But I can only do that if I have my requirement met on this side. Now another thing that happens in this game is, for example, you have a hand of cards and you can't play a card on here. You cannot make any matching requirements. What you will do is you are then going to show your hand to your opponent. You will discard however many cards you want to. It's your choice. Then you will draw back up that many cards, so you need to make sure that you have 8 cards in your hand. And then you will play a card then. If you can't play a card after the second draw, you will discard as many cards as you want, draw them back up, and your turn will end. Now, for example, here, I have my 3 cards played on this particular mat, which is the number 3 mat. And I'm going to focus in here so you can see what's going on here. I have 6 points on the red, and right now they only have 5 cards on there. So over the course of the turn, let's say, for example, we played a 3 here, and then somehow they didn't really have anything else and they played a 3 here. They really didn't have a choice and they knew they weren't going to win. So now the requirements have been met here. This yellow is filling in for the 3. I mean, this wild here is the 3 yellow, and this 2 here is also going to be a yellow. So now this mat is able to be scored, and it's going to be the lower total. I have 6 points here, and this one up here has 11, so clearly I'm going to win. So what will happen is I will take and score these 3 candies. All these cards are then discarded. The mat is flipped over, and I will put 3 new candies out on the board. And this play is going to continue going back and forth, and you're going to be collecting candies. On your turn, if you have a specific number of candies, you will then be able to claim one of the metal cards. So for example, if I had 3 yellow candies, if I borrow some of these, let's say I had 3 yellow candies at the end of during my turn, I could claim this yellow metal. And so now it's going to be tougher because now you're going to have more candies that you're going to have to collect in order to score some of those. So you will get a little more difficult to try to score candies as you go along. And the first person to get 3 of these is going to win the game. Now, the game does get a little bit more difficult later on. The longer the game goes on, these candies become more and more scarce. Now, in the event that, say for example, we scored this 4, and these candies were collected, and this card was discarded, and we flipped it over. And I went to go reach into the bag to draw out candies. If there were not enough candies to fill a tile, this tile is then discarded and becomes out of place. So now there's less opportunities to score. So the longer the game goes on, the more lucrative it is. So again, this play is going to continue until the first player to score 3 of those metal cards wins the game. Okay, so let's talk about Piñata here. And first thing I want to start off with is talking about the component quality. And the component quality in this game is very, very good. I especially like the player mats. They're made out of wood. So they're not really they're not cardboard. So they're thick. They're probably 1/8 of an inch thick. So they lay nice and flat. I don't see any issues with any kind of warping in the future. And also the nice quality of the little candies that come with the game. They're nice wood. They're painted well. And also the cards that come with this game are really good. They're nice and sturdy. They shuffle really well. They have a nice smooth finish to them. And they just handle really well because you're doing a lot of placing cards in here and shuffling cards up and moving things around. So the quality of the cards is really, really good. The artwork is very bright, very festive, and it kind of gives it that whole party aspect, and kind of you're out there wanting to smack the piñata. But for me, the artwork poses a slight problem in that the mat itself, the colors, the candies that get placed on the mat can kind of blend in, and it can be a little bit difficult to see. For example, if the arrow is pointing up and you want to have the higher scores, the background is purple. So you tend to kind of have to really strain to look for the purple and the pink candies. And similarly, when the arrow is pointing down and you want to have the lower scoring cards, the red and the yellows can tend to blend in because there's an orange background. So that's just a minor thing, but it also can pose a problem. And if somebody's colorblind, this game is going to be very difficult to play. So there is that slight issue with the artwork and the colors. Now, looking at the gameplay of this game, it's very light. So there's not a whole lot of thought to go into playing this game, so younger players can play it. And I think that this game is geared towards younger players. Just at looking at the artwork, you've got the cute little kids and things going on there. So the artwork and the theme kind of match in with the gameplay. And it's very, very quick. You know, it's a matter of looking at your hand, playing a card, drawing a card, you know, and then you're kind of doing some planning, looking to see what your player across from you is going to do, and then you just continue going back and forth. Now, strategy does come into this game in a couple of forms. Number one is going to be when you're playing your cards, are you going to hurry up and meet your requirements on your side of the board in an attempt to try and place cards on the other side, you know, on your opponent, to kind of give them a take that and kind of stick them to where they're going to either have to play something really, really low, or it's just going to be impossible, that they won't be able to score that particular piñata and gain the candies anyways? Or are you going to specifically kind of not fulfill a certain requirement so that it can drag out in being scored in an attempt to maybe score a different piñata and get those candies? So there is some hand management that's involved in here, and how you're going to play your cards on the board. Now, this game, as the game goes on, it gets to be more competitive and a little bit more difficult, because as the candies become more scarce, because there's only 45 of them that come in the game, as you're smacking the piñata and you're collecting candies and you have them in front of you, there's less and less in the bag. And so later on in the game, you run the risk of losing certain piñatas to hit in order to score more candies. So I like that aspect of the game. And I also like the fact that it's almost first come, first serve when scoring the metal cards. And so some of them are easy. So if you can snag up a couple of the, like, for example, you have 3 yellow candies, you can grab that 3 metal card right away. And so you're working on trying, if you can get those lower valued ones, you have a tendency you're going to win the game faster, opposed to if you are trying to go after, and you're left with having to go after something high. For example, I think the red, you need to have 7 red candies in order to score that, which is quite a bit, and it's going to take some time. And so if you do that, you're going to have to specifically be focusing on certain piñatas to hit in order to get those candies. So there's some thought process that goes into there. Now, the other thing that I do like is the change in the gameplay, and that's once the piñata is scored, once you hit it and you get those candies, it flips over. So it does give the game that kind of feel of somebody like pulling the piñata up and down, and it also changes how you're going to play your cards. And so you have to anticipate, okay, once I score this, now if I'm playing all these low cards, I want to make sure that I have some good high-valued cards in there to score it back and forth. So it does give it that, so there's some planning there too. Again, it goes back to hand management. But again, it's not a really, really deep game in order to play. Now, looking at this game from a family perspective, you have a few different things that are going on here. Number one is your set collection, and that's going to be matching the colors of your cards in your hand with the colors of the candies that are on the piñata. So there's some matching there, and then again, trying to be able to collect those. And then also the math in this game is very strong. So mental math, so you're playing cards and you're doing addition. You're going to have to do an addition and then subtraction, and then being able to compare between greater than and less than in those sums, and looking to be able to score, or what you're going to do to be able to score the piñatas depending on whether the arrow is up or down. So that is very good too. Social aspect in this game is kind of fun. You can have some friendly back and forth, kind of take that as you're playing cards against your opponent, and the same thing, they're going to be doing that. So you can have a little bit of the haha take that aspect. So that's really good with the game too. The theme of this game does carry through. Again, it's the piñata, and so it does give you that overall feel of, as the cards are changing between up and down, of smacking the piñata and trying to get the candies. And then obviously, as the more that if you hit the piñata, eventually there's no more candy to come out of it. So that's good as the gameplay progresses and those go out of play. So for me, this kind of game, it's light and it's enjoyable to play. It's not something that I would be playing all the time, but if my kids brought it out and they wanted to play it, I would certainly play it with them. I see this game being played with younger players, probably around the age of 10 to maybe 13 or 14 primarily, and then also in a family environment with mom or dad playing with one of the kids. So that's kind of where I see this game being best fit. So if you would like to smack the piñata and try to get a whole bunch of candies, then do yourself a favor and go out and get yourself a copy of Piñata and put it in your library. Okay, that's it for now, and join me again next time as we take a look at another game and see how it makes it to the table.